Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is B with DBD, and I thought I'd give my top 5 tips plus a bonus one for optimizing TRT or testosterone replacement therapy. These are things that have worked for me and has helped me optimize my protocol or my therapy or whatever you want to call it. And it's just made it more efficient. It's made it more helpful as far as how it impacts my mental health specifically, because I don't know if I've mentioned it on my other videos, although I don't post very often, so maybe I have, maybe I didn't. But testosterone replacement therapy has been a huge game changer for me, specifically with my mental health. And when you're trying to figure out how to optimize your testosterone replacement therapy, it's kind of a long journey. It takes a lot of trial and error and working with your doctor. So these are just 5 things that I found to be very helpful for myself, and I hope that they can be helpful for you. Now, I am not a doctor or a medical professional, so always go with the guidance of your doctor. But I do think these would be great topics to bring up to your doctor or your clinic, wherever you're getting it from, to see if this would be good for you to try and things like that. So without further ado, tip 1 is going to be injection frequency. When you're doing your TRT protocol, most doctors and clinics will do once, maybe twice a week type of recommendations. And I was on that 1 week, then I moved to 2 weeks, and then I moved to kind of every other day. And then I realized I need to try doing every day. So I found that everyday injections, you split what your weekly dose is. So for me personally, and it took a while to find this out, but for me personally, 140 milligrams a week is my weekly dose. And I split that up 7 days because it's 7 days in a week, so every day. And that has gotten me to 20 milligrams daily that I inject. And my total testosterone tends to be around like the 800, 880 range. So it's in a very good spot. Now, the thing that I think is important about this is it allows you to fine tune your therapy to figure out what dose is going to work for you, because if you're doing that once or twice a week type of injection, you're going to have these big spikes. You're going to roller coaster down in the middle of the week or as the week goes on, and it's going to be hard for you to determine, what is the ideal amount. Do you need more to kind of handle that crash down? But then now you're taking a little bit too much, because you might be at that supra range of those doses when you're taking that first day just to make up for the rest of the week, where it would make more sense if you just divided it by 7 days and you took it every day, because your hormones are going to be just a lot more stable instead of up, down. It's going to be starting off going at a slow curve, and then it's going to eventually flatten out. And the longer you're on it, the longer you are doing this, you're just going to stay leveled like that. And so you're going to have less dips with your mental health, with like anxiety or with lethargy, feeling that fatigue, because that's something that I noticed that I felt too, is when I'm coming down, when I was on my 2 week, my Monday inject, by Wednesday I was feeling crashed. After work, I'd want to go lay down and go to bed, not really do much. So that is going to help with it, and it's going to make it easier for you to narrow down how much do you need to adjust for your protocol. Is 140 what you need? Is 100 what you need? 200 what you need? It's going to be easier when you're taking it, every day, to keep your hormones as stable as possible. Tip number 2. So tip number 2 is going to be using insulin syringes for your injections. And if you are going towards the route of doing these daily injections, or just more frequent injections, and of course this is all if you need to, because if you're feeling fine on like once a week, twice a week, this video is not for you then, for the most part. This is for folks who are still having kind of some side effects from it, especially acne can be another thing too. So to help keep up with the kind of mental fatigue of having to inject every day, because the needles that we use to intramuscular inject larger amounts once or twice a week, that's going to be very daunting and kind of mentally exhausting when you're using those bigger longer needles. However, if you're to use your insulin syringes and at varying sizes of a 29 gauge, a 30 gauge, or a 31 gauge, play around with whichever one you like. It's going to make it easier, especially when you're going to inject the medication or the testosterone. So I highly recommend using insulin syringes if you are going that frequent injection route. Tip number 3 is kind of an interesting one. It's going to be warming up the oil. And this sounds like it really isn't a big deal, but it kind of is. And I think this could benefit people who are even doing once or twice a week type of injections. If you inject and you notice that you have kind of that lump or maybe a little bit of pain during or after the injection, that can typically be because the oil is very viscous, especially if you live in colder climates, or maybe you keep the AC on all the time, and so it tends to be cooler wherever you're storing your testosterone. So if you were to heat up your oil, it's just going to make it more pleasant, and it's going to allow it to disperse a little bit better as it gets injected into your tissue. So I highly recommend you do that. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can either take the vial itself and set it in a cup of very warm water, not boiling hot, not super hot, but just above warm, and set it in there for like 30 seconds to 60 seconds. You could run it under the hot setting on your faucet. That's another way. Or you could have the syringe already with the testosterone and just roll it in between your fingers. I don't really like that one. I don't think it works well. Me personally, what I like to do is I take the syringe, and of course it's sealed, and being as sanitary as possible, I'll put it under my arm, in between my bicep and my lat, and no, it's not on my armpit, it's just right around here, still part of the artery, and you're gonna just lay it right there. And as I am washing my hands and brushing my teeth, just doing my morning routine, by the time a few minutes have been done, the syringe is now warm enough for the oil to be less viscous, so it makes it easier to inject. Tip number 4 is going to be kind of controversial within the TRT community, but it's going to be subcutaneous versus intramuscular injections. And again, these are things that you should bring up with your doctor before trying them out, just to get their opinion on it. But for me personally, because I have a higher body fat percentage, it makes more sense for me to do subcutaneous because I don't have enough lean tissue exposed. Like my shoulders are probably the only thing, and even then they're questionably lean, if that. So it just makes it more efficient if I just go into the stomach, the abdomen area, the love handles, basically wherever I have extra fat. Just gonna make things easier. It also helps with adhering to the daily injections because you're gonna feel significantly less of a poke on your belly fat region area compared to maybe actually going into your muscles. Now again, the insulin syringes at those smaller gauges, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal doing intramuscular, but if you're carrying more body fat, I highly recommend you try going the subcutaneous route, just because you have a lot of real estate for it, and you don't have to worry about kind of going to the same areas, because again, if your shoulders are the only lean part, you're going to only be hitting your shoulders, and that's all you got to work with. Whereas if you go with your fat, you just got a lot more to work with. Now if you are lean though, you're pretty darn lean, you can hit your triceps, your shoulders, you can hit your lats, then I would prefer, if it was myself, to go the intramuscular route, still using the insulin syringes, but doing that because you're just going to metabolize it better. And that's kind of the downside with subcutaneous, is since you can't metabolize it as well, you may not get the full potency of your testosterone. And that's because you just have less, blood vessels in there to absorb it. However, it will help with keeping your hormones more stable since it absorbs it slower. So it's kind of like a win-lose situation. But if you really want to maximize your testosterone and you are very lean, then definitely go the intramuscular route. I'm going to go to that route once I am lean enough to do it. But for now, I'm sticking with subcutaneous until then. Tip number 5, and that is going to be, you'll be very surprised, but sanitation. This one is kind of important. I've met a lot of people, especially in the military, who not very sanitary. They have to kind of be told when to freaking clean up, their bodies and their clothes and their bedding and it's pretty gnarly. Even brushing their teeth. So this one is kind of important because I have heard some folks don't use alcohol wipes as efficiently as they should. And let me explain this. When you are you're getting your vial out, you're pulling the testosterone, first thing you want to do before you do any of that is wash your hands with hot water and soap. You want to make sure, just like how everyone preps food, they have to have, clean, fresh washed hands with soap. Then make sure you have a couple alcohol wipes, and you're going to want to take that alcohol wipe and wipe the top of your vial. Let it dry on its own, because that's the actual germ killing process, is the alcohol drying on its own. Then that's when you stick the needle in and draw your testosterone, and then take the alcohol wipe to the area that you're going to inject. Of course, go through the process. Now here's the thing, before you go put it away your vial, wipe it one more time with a fresh alcohol pad, because sometimes, and maybe not every time, but sometimes you might get the slightest drop of oil at that top, and we know that oil can hold on to a lot of bacteria and germs. So to know you kind of have peace of mind that you wiped potentially all that germs and bacteria away before storing it, it's gonna feel good. You're gonna have that peace of mind. So that's number 5. Okay, bonus tip here for you guys. If you decide to go the daily injections or just more frequent injections than you have been doing, is preloading your syringes. This one is kind of a game changer as far as, one, saving a lot of time, making it less of a headache to have to take your testosterone because you don't have to draw it every single time. If your testosterone has grapeseed oil or MCT oil, you're probably going to be fine. You don't have to worry about it breaking down the rubber stopper, but definitely go ahead and do your research. Ask your doctor about these questions. However, when we think about adherence, that's a big one. And this is why most doctors aren't going to recommend these tips outside of the sanitation process, is because adherence is a big thing. If you're going to tell someone to take an injection every day who's never taken injections before and now they kind of have to, it's going to be a kind of a tough sell on them, and they're not going to like that. These are kind of tips to help adhere to it. So when you preload the syringes, it just saves you a lot of time, and it makes it easier to just pull out that syringe, wipe everything down, go for it, and toss it away, and you're done. So I usually choose like a Sunday to do this. I will take a regular syringe, still 1 milliliter, but the ones where the lure locks where you can put your own needle and screw it on top of, I'll get 7 of my insulin syringes ready to go, and I'll draw up the whole 140 for my week, literally 20 milligrams, or I guess on an insulin syringe or your 1 ml syringe, it would be either the 1 or the 10 mark, depending how they labeled your syringes, because a 1 or 10, they're kind of the same thing as far as like the space goes. Into the insulin syringe. So I pull the back part out, I hold it with my mouth, and I quickly put that, and then I kind of hold it up and flip it upside down, not pushing any air, not pushing it in, but also it's there enough to prevent oil from leaking out. And I kind of flick it and shake it a little bit to get the oil to come down, and then I'll push it up and then actually bring it just a few lines before the oil touches where this needle would go. And this is to try and prevent pushing any oil through the needle. So that's kind of what I do, and then I put that to the side and I just move to the next one. It's just going to be easier because you literally just go up, you grab that, and it's like, okay, it's already measured, ready to go. All you got to do is just warm it up, flick that bubble out, and then boom, inject. Good to go, done for the day, quick and easy. Give it a shot if you get the green light from your doctors. But yeah, so these are my 5 tips I recommend for those trying to manage their protocol, plus that bonus tip to try and adhere to the everyday or at least the more frequent injection route. I hope you guys like this and I hope it's helpful. If you have any questions or if you have any tips yourself, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I would really appreciate it. We can all learn from each other. You know, we kind of had to stick together because we're on this for life, and it will really help the channel as well. So feel free to drop a like, leave that comment, and hopefully subscribe if you like the content. I will be dropping a video about my top 5 supplements for those on testosterone replacement therapy. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested in. Thank you so much. Everyone take care. Later.